Well, hello there, friends, and welcome. This is Syracuse Football Postgame. Brent X, Emily Leiker, the JMA Wireless Dome. We just watched the white team take down the blue team. 31-10 was the final score. The Syracuse Football Spring Game. Emily, one of the most anticipated spring games that I can remember here in Syracuse. We got the numbers, so there were over 16,000 tickets distributed for this spring game. About 9,000-ish is what I'm going to say the crowd was, which one way or the other, no matter what that official butts and seats number was behind us here at the Dome, that's a record for the spring game. And we could feel it from you guys, our Syracuse Sports Insiders, people on social media, wherever you were coming at us from, that this was a highly anticipated spring game, and it did not let down in a lot of different ways here. Emily, the story of this offseason has been Kyle McCord. Kyle McCord looked pretty darn good out there. He looked like a quarterback in his one half of football here at the Dome tonight.
Right. And I mean, you heard the cheer when Kyle showed up and they publicly announced him. And, you know, I mentioned in the lead of my takeaways that, like, obviously your starting quarterback, number 6, a phrase we're familiar hearing around here. Garrett Schrader was number 6, but then Kyle McCord, and just kind of the whole Dome erupts in cheers. And you just really felt like tonight was kind of just finally this payoff. Obviously, there's still a payoff once the season comes, but I think for so many people in the program, watching the program, around the program, like, tonight is kind of like gratification and kind of a little bit of an assurance that all these things that we've talked about for the past 4 or 5 months since Fran Brown was hired, like, these things are coming true and they are manifesting in a certain way.
Kyle McCord threw deep a few times to Zeed Haynes, connected a couple on those throws, missed a couple on those throws, but he just looked the part. What we've been telling people that we've seen in practice, like, he just looks the part. He looks like a quarterback. He's got the arm. He's got the presence. Everything that we've heard and seen from Kyle McCord, the fans that were here tonight saw that. So Zeed Haynes, Emily, there is not a name I think we heard more when we talk to players, like who's popping out there, who looks good. He was a guy that we heard so many times in spring ball. We saw it out there tonight. The guy just gets separation.
Right, yeah, we did see a couple incompletions between him. You could tell at the beginning, like, him and McCord are still very much, like, working out their relationship, as all of these receivers are with Kyle. But yeah, some of his connections were really good, and you did see his speed, his raw speed that we have just heard about over and over again. And so he was obviously impressive. I think one of those guys that just everyone was looking forward to, and again, paid off. It was a manifestation. Like, we haven't just been saying these things to you guys. Like, they're actually true, and now you've seen them.
We did not see Jackson Meeks in the spring game. He had a procedure done that took him out of spring ball. He's going to be fine for the fall. But you add that name to the room. You add Oronde Gatson, who, of course, didn't play out there tonight. They're keeping it. They shut him down for spring. They're keeping it safe, of course, as he continues to recover from that Liz Frank injury. The names that we saw out there tonight. But, man, Trebor Peña. You want to talk about a guy who you start to see, even in a spring game, how much they missed him in this offense last year. Because, Emily, he's an outlet. You know, there's going to be times when this offensive line breaks down, and we'll see if they throw to the tight end more when you have a guy like Dan Villari out there and a couple of names. Hopefully they do. But he is a safety valve and an outlet, but he just looks like he's got a connection with Kyle McCord. And Kyle brought this up the other day, Emily, that Peña's a name that just rolled off the tongue as somebody he's connected with. You could see it out there, even in a spring game kind of controlled situation that this game was tonight.
Right. I mean, I honestly think Peña might have been the biggest standout of the evening. Like, Zeed Haynes looked great. Kyle McCord looked great. But in terms of offensive guys, like, the guy whose name I saw the most on social media and who I was, like, most impressed by how flashy he was Trebor. And he was just great. He had a 51-yard catch early in the 51-yard catch early in the game. Getting so late, I feel like I'm mumbling all my words. But, you know, in talking with people in the program last year, kind of as things started to unravel near the end of the season, right? Like, they don't have a passing attack. They don't have anything going on there. They're lacking receiving targets kind of the whole season. You know, like, something I was told multiple times was Trebor Peña was the number 2 guy in this offense as a pass catcher behind Oronde. And when both of them were out for the season, like, that just completely deflates what their passing attack was going to be. And so, you know, hearing that, I was like, okay, like, I guess I can understand, but I didn't feel like we had seen too much of him in my first season covering the team in 2022. Tonight, it totally clicked for me. Like, I understood why people were telling me that and how much not having him last season would have affected the team.
No question about it. So those were some of the receivers that popped. One of the biggest questions of spring ball, one of the biggest questions we had from our Syracuse Sports Insiders was about the offensive line. And that's always a question mark with any football team, but particularly with the breakdowns and the inconsistency we've seen in the offensive line at Syracuse in recent years. This is sort of hard to judge, Emily, because you could tell there was the code red was don't touch McCord, don't come near McCord. Yeah. There were times when the pass rush got some push, but you could tell they really let up as to not hit McCord, who didn't have the red jersey on, but he had the orange jersey on. Clearly, don't touch that dude. But I think the offensive line did offer some good protection tonight. There was a guy that stood out to me, and I wonder if you have a name or two. They call him Big Spoon. Darius Weatherspoon, I think, did a really nice job tonight. He opened up some holes when Yasin Wills, my man, I've been telling you about this guy throughout spring, scored on a 9-yard rushing touchdown. But other times when there was legit back and forth between the offensive and defensive line, in particular, Emily, on Fadil Diggs, who this just in, guys, 6'5", 260. I got so many texts from you guys saying, holy cow, look at that guy. He pops out there. He's nearly unblockable. And remember, had to, kind of downshift a little bit coming after McCord. But I think Big Spoon certainly impressed out there tonight. Anybody else that stood out to you?
I think the whole line is really solid. And it is interesting to note, they still have a few guys who are potential starters who were injured. Obviously, David Wollabaugh has been out the whole spring. Joe Moore suffered some sort of injury in, the final week of spring, and so he wasn't playing tonight, but he had been a guy that we had talked to and had been competing for some sort of role in this starting line. Not necessarily for his play on the field, but just generally how he seemed to be treated by the team tonight. Mark Petrie, he was a captain. He walked out with the captains, and I was like, wow, Mark Petrie, he's the guy that had to step up and fill David Wollabaugh's spot last year. And so everyone was kind of oh, this is a second string guy, but he stayed first string offense pretty much all spring. He was on our projected depth chart. We talked about him when we talked with Coach Dale Williams, and that was really interesting. You got one of the fun in-game awards as well. I don't remember which one it was. It was the John A. Lawley Award, most accountable offensive lineman to your teammates.
He also had a 4-yard carry out there.
Yes.
I don't know if that was designed. I don't know if that was Fumblerooski. I don't know if that was the annexation of Puerto Rico, if you saw Little Giants back in the day, but he had a 4-yard carry out there, so good for him.
I think Chris got Fran to say on the way out that was Lolly's idea, which...
Great call, John Lally. Great call. John Lally and Zaire Franklin, honorary coaches out there tonight. We saw a lot more alums here tonight, and before we talk about a couple other positions in the defense, Emily, how many recruits are here tonight? Wow. I've never seen that many. This is a theme that's developed through spring ball. We have seen practices this year, particularly that one Saturday practice where the door to the Ensley Center was wide open for 10 minutes as people streamed in. Before the game, you could just see all the recruits on the field. They actually got a commitment from a running back during the game.
Mid-game.
Fran Brown's getting recruits during the game. Class of 2026 running back. We wrote about that. You can see it on syracuse.com. That's their third commitment for class of 2026. There were so many recruits out there. So, just by the numbers, they could have their recruiting class filled by the middle of next week at the rate they're going.
Right. I said to Chris, I was like, I'm getting us binoculars because this fall, we are going to need to look at all of these players on the sideline. We have a pretty good view when you have numbers on the jerseys and you are already familiar with how guys, what guys look like. But when they get all those guys out there and people start asking, who are you seeing? I'm like, I could not tell you who's who down there. So I'm going to get some binoculars and hopefully we'll be able to tell you in the fall.
Now, I can't believe we're about 10 minutes into this and I have not said the name Yasin Wills yet.
You did.
Oh, we did say it once. That's right. The 9-yard touchdown. Guys, I've been telling you throughout spring practice, and Fran Brown, I'm going to play the clip coming up here, said what I was thinking, what I was texting to a lot of our Syracuse Sports Insiders. Thunder and lightning, right? LaQuinn Allen is unequivocally the number one running back on this team. He showed that again tonight. He had a big touchdown run, a couple of big runs out there. Fran Brown said in postgame that he's the hard worker on the team. He got a couple of the in-game awards that were put out there tonight. LaQuinn Allen is one, but Willis, I'm not going to put him quite at 1A yet because that'd be really jumping over the moon here. But clearly he's the second running back, Emily. Clearly they're going to be on the field together. And to use that thunder and lightning term, that's a good idea because he's running dudes over out there. Now, he had a fumble. Okay, he's a freshman. He's going to make some mistakes. He's got to learn how to block. But what I was really surprised with tonight, and we did not get a good look at in the spring, he can catch the ball out of the backfield, and he just looks polished. The best compliment I can give him, besides the fact he's 6'1", 227, and just a wrecking ball of a human being, is he's got great hands and catches the ball out of the backfield a little bit better than I expected at this point.
Yeah, as we were watching, there was a point kind of in like the third quarter where I was almost like, oh, Yasin's taking a lot of the snaps, a lot of the reps. I'm like, does this mean something? Like, does this mean maybe he's challenging LeQuint more than we're used to? And I was like, no, like LeQuint popped off like a 50-yard touchdown. Like, he looks so solid. And I think what I came to realize, or like what confirmed it for me, that LeQuint's still very much the number one, is Brown said post-game, like someone phrased it as like, oh, Yasin's on the first team, he's taking first team reps. And Brown was like, well, you mean after LeQuint gets on the field, right? And so I think Yasin getting more reps is, I mean, obviously, like you said, he's a true freshman, so you just want to get him more reps. But also I think similar to what they did with McCord, they were protecting LeQuint as one of their stars and giving him some time off because he's kind of in the same exact vein as McCord. Is you don't want that guy injured in spring ball or in fall camp if you can avoid it. Like, you want him as healthy as possible by the time game one comes.
Let's play that clip. Here is Fran Brown talking post-game about Yasin Wills.
He's a big athletic kid, and I've been seeing it. I seen it when we flipped him from the other school when he committed to us. So I just kind of been to it. So I was like, okay, we're going to get this kid. We'll have thunder and lightning with both of those guys being able to play, and then we got another youngin right behind him that can play too. So just all three of those guys, I felt as though they'll be good for us. I mean, he's 6'1", 227 pounds. He came in at 212 pounds. He lost body fat and put on muscle. So, I think he'll be a good player.
Thunder and lightning. I mean, 227 pounds of muscle. The fat that he took off, the muscle he put on, it's been a common theme with the training we've heard from these guys. Okay, that's the offense. On defense, Emily, again, it's a little tougher to tell because the defensive line was told not to touch the quarterback, although Carlos Del Rio Wilson and Braden Davis both took some hits out there, Carlos Del Rio Wilson in particular. Before we get to the defense, though, we should mention here, all right, Carlos Del Rio Wilson is QB2. I think we found that out tonight. I still think that Fran Brown has to look hard in the portal for a quarterback. I still think, and he had some complimentary things to say about Braden Davis, but clearly he's not in the mix seriously a quarterback at this point. You have Jakari Williams coming in the fall, who's a freshman. You have A.J. Miller coming in the fall, who's a preferred walk-on. This is a big drop-off, if we're being honest here, between Kyle McCord and the quarterbacks behind him. So Carlos is the guy, Emily, but I think we saw there's a big gap between 1 and 2 at quarterback. And look, the backup quarterback plays at Syracuse. We have seen that over the last decade. Ryan Nassib's the last guy that's gone through a season pretty much untouched. Eric Dungy made it through most of the 2018 season, but he did miss a game and missed a season's worth of games when he was at quarterback at Syracuse and the various injuries that he went through in his Syracuse career. You need a backup quarterback, right? So God forbid something happens to Kyle McCord, Syracuse is going to have some issues on the offensive side of the ball.
Right. I mean, I did think we saw Carlos settle in a little after his first couple possessions. Like, first possession, not great. I think he was sacked very early on in the first possession. But we did see him settle in. He had some big plays. He scored the only touchdown for the blue team, rushed that in. He had some heads-up scramble. But you're right. He's no Kyle McCord. He's not anywhere close to Kyle McCord. And he wasn't very close to Schrader either last season, right? Like, this has been a problem now for a couple seasons, is that there's a more significant drop-off between the first string QB and the second string QB than you would like in most programs, right? I thought it was telling that Brown mentioned the portal when talking about, well, what does the QB situation look like into the fall? I think the question was phrased as like, oh, well, where's Braden Davis going to practice this spring and into the fall? And he was like, well, we'll play him at both quarterback and wide receiver, but it kind of depends on how things shake out. in the portal and just with practice and stuff too. So like he's not ruling that out. I haven't taken a look yet at who's in the portal quarterback wise this spring. Surely there are a few guys in there, but second time around, I would think there are less than the first time around.
Well, and what's the issue with that? If you're a quarterback in the transfer portal, you're going to want to play, right? So that's going to be a challenge to find a quarterback in the portal that knows they're the backup. Now, where you could score there, Emily, look at Braden Davis. He transferred as a freshman. You can get a quarterback like, look, Kyle McCord's our guy, but you could be the guy next year, right? You'll be competing with Williams and some of those names that we mentioned here, but still think with the portal open for another 10 days, Syracuse has to take a hard look at that position. Defense, Emily, we mentioned Diggs. I mean, that's the name that just pops off the board here. Even considering the instructions the defense was under tonight, who are some other names that popped out there for you?
The tank, Dion Wilson Jr. Not only was his play good on the field, but he also had this like very fun, awesome, energetic celebration at one point that just made me chuckle. I thought it was great energy from him. Rashard Perry is another D lineman, a younger guy that I really think has stood out this spring. He was getting pressure on Carlos Del Rio Wilson early in the game. I think with the defense, and we kind of already talked about it here, where like there were some things they were held back from doing, and so like I saw some people being like, should we be worried because Kyle just scored 31 points on our defense? I would take that more as we're dealing with a much better offense than we have in previous years.
For sure.
Because I mean, you guys know the talent that's returning. You guys are familiar with how Marlo Wax plays and how Justin Barron plays and how Elijah Clark and Deuce Chestnut and even guys like Jaden Bellamy who are younger but are here last year. You know how all those guys play, and now you're adding Fadil Diggs into the mix. So I don't think too many people were concerned with what they saw from the defense. And I mean, I wasn't at all. But if you were for some reason like, 31 points like against our starting defense, chill out. I think it'll all be okay.
I like Devin Grant out there tonight. There was a couple times he chased down Zeed Haynes on some deep throws. They were really challenging each other. Marcellus Barnes Jr. got a lot of buzz in spring ball. A couple times he got beat out there tonight, but a couple times I think he caught up with some passes. I agree with you on the tank, but I just keep coming back to Diggs. Diggs is just the guy that pops. I mean, Marlo Wax had a great hit on my guy Willis, but we know that. Justin Barron got some pressure. King Joseph Edwards.
He did make some appearances, yeah.
There's a guy right there. We heard so much about him, his big commitment. He has been very active in the community, and not so much did we hear about him in spring ball, though, right? It just wasn't one of those names that popped versus some others that we talked about, but he had a great sack out there on Carlos Del Rio Wilson, knocked the ball loose and showed that, he's a future star for Syracuse as well. All right, Emily, let's listen into a couple more things that Fran Brown had to say, and then we're going to hear from our Syracuse Sports Insiders. We were texting all day and night. It was great to meet a bunch of you, by the way, here at the Dome tonight.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I met a couple, and I met someone at Springsteen the other night, not an insider, but a pod listener. So if you met me at Springsteen and you said that you listened to the pod but aren't an insider, you need to be an insider now.
Shout out to you. I had a couple people come up to me tonight and say, hey, I got to join that insider thing. I'm like, yes, you do. Just text the word orange to 315-847-3895. You can try it free for 2 weeks, and then it's just $3.99 a month after that. Speaking of Springsteen, Emily, it's amazing that behind us 2 days ago was this giant concert stage, one of the biggest I've ever seen in my life, and Pete Sala and his crew at the Dome flip it around. It's a football facility again, and the amazing job that they do. All right, let's listen into a couple more things that Fran Brown had to say. After this one, I asked Fran, were there some questions you had about your team that were answered in this game tonight? And here's what he said.
See, I just look at this as practice. Y'all look at it as a game or whatever. The only thing different is there's a lot of people there. But I create chaotic situations every day. I know who I'm going to put the pressure on, who I'm not. So, I just seen them continue to do what we practice on. There was a few things that I saw that I didn't like, not football-wise. It was things on the sideline, like turning around, talking to the crowd, and signing stuff during the game. Like, I don't like that BS. Like, that's weird. Like we're playing football and you're signing an autograph during the game. I don't like those kind of things because those are the things that get you beat. So I want you to be locked in on the game, cheering your guy on, making sure you pay attention to everything. There's two types of pressure to me. Things that bad going bad, people can't handle that kind of pressure, but some people can't handle good pressure. They can't handle success. So I got to make sure that I'm preparing for that. I had a lot of people in the building throughout the week this week, a lot of cameras, a lot of different things, and you just could see who acts different and who does what and who could stick to the course.
So Emily talks about the two kinds of pressure there, some things that – now I want to play this next clip because when we asked Fran some things that didn't go well, it was interesting how involved he is in the planning of everything. They did the quad walk again, but as Fran tells us here, that didn't quite go according to plan. Spring practice, routines, practice, trying to get things down, right? But Fran certainly had some thoughts on how things went pregame. Here that is.
Yeah, we got to get the band out there. It wasn't the way I wanted it. I talked to them about it a lot. It was weak. They ain't do it right. I'm happy for the fans and the people that were there, but the band was supposed to be there. The cheerleaders supposed to come. Everybody's supposed to be there completely deep. We told them the time we was coming. It wasn't set up right. Even the way we walked, we were supposed to go straight and make a right away and then walk through it so that way it's more room for everybody. The way we went, it was like, let's do this because it's only 38 people or something of that nature. But we're going to get it better. It'll be a lot different next time, and they'll continue to get better and better. You know what makes the walk better? Winning. More you win, people come. So we just got to win, I guess. They're like, nah, y'all ain't winning enough for the band yet. So maybe we got to win to get the band to come out.
As Fran said, Emily, winning will cure all in these situations here. But still some hiccups that they've got to work out. And that quad walk is really cool if it's done right, if the band's out there, and they'll get there, Bigger crowd, record crowd here tonight, as we mentioned, for the spring game. But winning cures all in these situations. So there's a couple more from Fran Brown. Emily, let's react to some things from our Syracuse Sports Insiders here. It's appropriate that Evan is our first texter featured tonight because he was our first Syracuse Sports Insider to sign up. Yeah.
Congrats, Evan.
My guy Evan, who was here tonight, and he says, McCord is a hell of a thrower. It's hard not to be excited about that. The O-line worries me. If we don't upgrade using the portal, we're going to be seeing some issues against the better teams on the schedule. Evan goes on to say, I'm as concerned as you about the backup quarterback situation. Mentions Carlos Del Rio Wilson and Braden Davis. I'm also a little worried about depth at wide receiver. I have a feeling Hatcher follows Brown to the portal. And then he notes much less concerned about the defense and says, Diggs, wow. Now, we should note this, Emily. Donovan Brown was not here tonight, number 87, wide receiver, was not at practice on Thursday. Fran Brown was asked about that afterwards. We didn't really get a clarification on his status, but Fran did mention that basically Donovan's going through some stuff right now.
Yeah, he is not in the portal that we know of, and we did check with someone who has access to the portal on Thursday and to see if his name was in there, and it was not at the time. When Fran was asked tonight, he said he's just not with the team and that there's like a university issue going on. He wouldn't say, he didn't disclose a lot, right? He didn't say like if it was him or like the university that made Brown not able to be on the team right now. So we'll try and parse a little bit more about maybe what's going on there. But he's not in the transfer portal that we know of right now. That could change in 24 hours. So don't hold me to that. But as it stands, it might be something unrelated to him transferring.
A guy that is in the portal, Jawan Price, running back, he was on the sideline wearing his number 28 jersey, not suited up for the game, but is in the portal, which, again, opened a few days ago and is till April 30th at this point. Continuing with our Syracuse Sports Insiders, heard a lot from Jack H. tonight, who says, McCord looks so good. He looks better than any quarterback we've had in a while. I don't know if I've seen a quarterback as good as him in an SU uniform in my lifetime. He does note he's 22 years old.
Younger than me. Not often that a pod listener is younger than I am, or an insider, that is.
Lock on. So there's been some good quarterbacks here, Eric Dungy notably, but you go back to Ryan Nassib in 2012. I think that's the best comparison. I mean, Nassib set a number of records here at Syracuse, as Dungy did. So there have been some good quarterbacks here. But I've heard a few people. I think there's even an insider I'm gonna highlight here that says the best since McNabb. We know that after one spring game, Emily.
One spring game.
I don't know about that. He looks the part, but people are certainly excited. As Jamel says here, Kyle's going to be special in orange. They need depth at the wide receiver position. Saw some drops. The defense is going to be nasty. McCord, there it is. McCord is the best quarterback since McNabb. From Drew K., who says, Cuse fans might be happy to learn that McCord has hit multiple targets. Gone are the days where our quarterback air quotes, picks a guy and runs the ball if he's not open. Now, Emily, again, with the defense on downshift a little bit here tonight, I did see that. I think that's an accurate statement from Drew there. McCord can go through the motions a little quicker. He can go through the reads a little quicker. He's comfortable in the pocket. Like, he just, from top to bottom, left to right. Because we have seen some different type quarterbacks. Garrett Schrader was not your typical quarterback. Eric Dungy was not your typical quarterback. Kyle McCord is the built-in-a-lab pro-style quarterback, and we saw it out there tonight.
Right. Well, I was going to note, as we talked about scrambling a little bit, Kyle did not scramble. We did not see him carry the ball once, I don't think. And if he did, it was not memorable, clearly, because I don't remember it. So we're entering a very different era for Syracuse football offense, and particularly quarterback play. And, yes, certainly impressive that he was hitting multiple targets. I think when you get in season and you're under pressure a little bit more, like, you are going to turn to the guys that you have the best chemistry with and connection. And, I think we saw a lot of that with Schrader because he was often hurt. And so you had to really go to the guy that you knew was going to catch it, no matter how badly you threw it occasionally. And that was Gadsden for him. And then he didn't have someone last year, and that's why there's a lot of struggles. But certainly it does seem like there are a lot of guys that McCord is building chemistry with early, and so the more of those guys that you have stockpiled, like, the easier it will be in a pressure situation to hit those targets.
Some more from you guys, our Syracuse Sports Insiders, from Michael B., who says, this is so refreshing to see. This is how you learn what your players can and can't do. Love the start to the Fran Brown era. From my man James, who says, the 1-2 punch at running back will be a good one. McCord throws the deep ball like he's still throwing to Marvin Harrison Jr. James also notes, Wax with the best hit of the night, and Sparrow looks pretty good this year. From Ed P., who says the Orange are going to run with Yasin the Beast Willis. From Glenn, who says this team has only been together for 4 months on the field for 1 and barely scrimmaged. Anyone who gives this team less than an A+, you better change that, because we always want room for improvement, but based on the criteria above, this is an effort tonight. There's no way around it. If I had to grade what I saw out there, Emily, I'd probably give it like a B+ overall. There's a couple little things out there that you had to shake off here, but what'd you think of Ed's A+, or is it Glenn? I'm sorry. Glenn's A+.
A+ is the highest on the grading scale, so I think we want to leave room for them to achieve an A+ later in the season. Fran Brown was asked to give a grade 1 through 10 of his team after, and he gave them a 5. So he clearly thinks there's a lot more potential in this team. So good to be excited, good to be high on them. But I do think there is still little things that need to be worked out here. And certainly Fran thinks there's still a lot of things that could be worked out to be better.
From Scotty C., who says, exciting to see the new chapter. Just like you said, though, quarterback depth is a little scary. Ed B. notes, one glaring difference between McCord and Schrader. McCord makes all the NFL throws with ease. Schrader either throws it to the ground or is too late to catch on the sideline. From Steve H., who says, the players definitely look bigger and faster. I think it's going to be an incredible season that will be fun to watch. I'm truly looking forward to the season starting. Emily, if there's one thing that I told people that came up to me, texted, whatever the case may be, and just said something general like, well, how do they look? My answer was always, they look like a football team. There's dudes out there, right? And it's not just the new additions, by the way, though McCord and Haynes and Meeks and Diggs and Willis certainly pop. Returning guys, Barron and Wax and Allen and OG and players that could have moved on one way or the other. Combine those two, and I can say this right now, walking away from this spring game, this is the most complete looking football team that I have seen in a spring game in a long time. I'll put it that way. I think that 2012 team with Nassib was pretty good, and there's a couple other teams that, look pretty good, but there's just dudes on this team. They just look like a legit ACC. I guess they were saying on the broadcast, like, they think this could be a playoff team. Woo! Let's go. They were fired up on that broadcast. But Emily, the best thing I could say, as simple as this sounds, they look like a football team. That's what I've told people left and right. I think that's the impression a lot of people left here tonight with.
Right. Everyone got bigger. literally bigger. Maybe they didn't grow inches, but their muscles bulked up, like noticeable stuff like that. Kind of in that vein, I think one thing I was often asked throughout the spring was like, what's the feel? What's the vibe around spring practice? And I think you felt it here tonight too. Like, these guys are excited to be playing football. They are excited to have a coach who like really truly wants to maximize their potential, right? Like, I think there's some comments about how when I did the projected depth chart, I know some people are like, oh, there's so many returning players on there. Guys, not like a lot of the guys on this team last year and who have stuck around this year are very good football players, but because of the offenses that were ran or the defense that was ran, like just these little things, like they weren't necessarily maximized as they could have been. And so now I think we are seeing that. And I think some of these guys who maybe in the past we've been like, they're good, but are they only Syracuse good? Or like, would they actually get drafted? Like, I think like we're going to see a lot of improvement from those guys. Like, you thought Marlowe Wax was good. Marlowe Wax is going to be better this year. You thought Justin Barron was good. Justin Barron's going to be better this year. And so I think that's a good thing to remember is like, yes, there's so many exciting new additions, but like you are going to see new versions of these older players as well.
And we'll close with one last thought here from Dave J., who says the offense looked good, but I'm worried about the O-line against ACC defenses. If they can't get a consistent push, the offense as a whole will grind to a halt. And look, we mentioned Spoon. Remember, he's the backup right tackle right now. Dave Wollabaugh was out of spring with the foot injury. He's continuing to recover from. He had a little bit of a setback with a surgery, and we expect him back in the fall. Josh Miller is pushing Enrique Cruz at left tackle. Dale Williams, the offensive line coach, has said he's mixing a bunch of guys around here. So I get it's a concern. It should be a concern, but it feels like there's more depth, and it feels like they could probably handle another injury or two. But fair point. We didn't see Kyle McCord against a, air quotes, real defense going full speed tonight. And all those questions that will still remain into the fall. But I think we answered a lot. I can't believe the spring game has come and gone. It has been incredible to hear from our Syracuse Sports Insiders throughout spring practice. You guys have asked amazing questions. We really appreciate you watching the pods, getting in touch with us, telling us what you wanted to hear, what you wanted to read about. We're going to have plenty of coverage on syracuse.com. So things will slow up a little bit, Emily, but
will they slow up?
See, that's the thing. Recruits are coming left and right. The portal's open for another 10 days. Yeah. There's no off season anymore, it feels like in football. So the intensity of practice every other day and the usual stuff that we were going through, that might slow down a little bit. But whatever happens to the offseason, we'll be on it for you. But again, thank you. Just amazing feedback from our Syracuse Sports Insiders, in particular, our pod watchers for Syracuse Sports. So thank you so much for that. We'll keep an eye on everything that happens from here on out. But another spring practice has concluded at the Dome. The white squad takes down the orange squad, or blue, right?
Blue.
White
and blue.
White beat blue. It's been a long day. We've been here since, what time is it? I've almost pulled a 12-hour day here at the Dome.
Same.
We saw a hell of a lacrosse game earlier. Syracuse beat Virginia 18-17. Back to true Syracuse Virginia lacrosse, by the way, and it all encapsulated with the spring game here tonight. For Emily Leiker, for our Syracuse Sports Insiders, I'm Brent Axe. Thank you so much, guys. That's a wrap from the Dome here live